Last week, I covered some of the available tools to those who want to develop games for the Vita. So for this week, I decided why not continue the trend and discuss why even bother creating games for older consoles. But before I jump into the topic, don't forget to like and subscribe to help out the channel. The PS Vita has been officially dead for almost 3 years now.
Are you taking a shower so we can't see you crying?
No! It's just the sound of the water hitting the drain!
The last games were released in the store in 2021. This decision was not made by developers, but instead by Sony. Because more than likely, between the process of certifying games, maintaining dev kits, and shipping out materials was no longer lucrative. However, between that time and now, the Vita has seen a ton of new releases, ranging from ports, emulators, to even some original games. Some of us, meaning me, are even planning on producing cartridges for upcoming releases. To put all your effort into a system that's been dead for 3 years and is no longer supported by Sony, you're probably asking, why the hell do so many developers want to develop games or applications for a dead system? Well, this likely depends on the developer. Some of us like the challenge. Modern consoles and PCs provide a significant amount of additional power and memory than what's available on older consoles such as the Vita. Unless you're making a AAA game with a $250,000 budget, you're more than likely not even going to tax modern hardware. However, on the Vita, it's a lot easier to push those limits, allowing homebrew developers to see what a platform is really capable of, as well as test their own limits. This goes for other hardware as well, such as the 32X port of Doom, which stands head and shoulders above what was officially released back in the 90s. Some might interpret this as inflating one's ego, which may be true for some, but I think most of us really just want to see the true potential of the hardware and test our own technical skills. Some developers really just love the hardware. Personally, the PS Vita is my favorite handheld of all time. The form factor is amazing, the screen on the 1000 model is beautiful. Honestly, the only thing I can really ask for is an L2 and an R2. So when it came down to developing hand cannon for the Vita, it was a no-brainer for me. The game was developed as a flip screen because of how clearly you can see everything on the Vita without scanning your eyes, unlike on a TV or a larger device. I have a similar love for Sega systems as well, such as the Genesis, Saturn, and Dreamcast, so you can probably expect for me to release games on those platforms eventually as well. Then there are those who are driven by profit, which is a camp I sort of fall into. The indie scene on every platform, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Steam, are all extremely crowded spaces. Everyone is fighting for the attention of the gaming public. As an indie dev, you aren't only competing against other indies, but also those games from AAA studios. This forces most to develop games with the broadest audience appeal, because you want to reach as many people as possible. I honestly don't think that has to be the only way. So instead of following the traditional game studio route, I wanted to fill a niche that I actually love, which is obviously the PS Vita. We have seen a rise of this recently, with the release and Kickstarters of a ton of new games but for retro consoles, such as the large aftermarket Game Boy scene and the incredible Dreamcast scene. A large number of these games are sort of quirky, and would more than likely be overlooked if they just appeared on Steam. But since they were made for niche platforms, with their core audience in mind, it allows for devs to put in the time to create those products. Now, aftermarket games are honestly not the most lucrative business in the world. But even selling somewhere around 500 physical copies of hand cannon for the Vita could begin to put me on the road to being indie full-time. But if I'm being real, I'm not expecting a major financial return from the Vita port of hand cannon. Then lastly, you have those who want to learn. To the average gamer, video game consoles are a black box. You just start a game and it works. Traditionally, you would need to acquire some sort of developer license or work for a major game studio to gain access to the tools to develop your game. For the large majority of aspiring game developers, this is really a big hurdle that you can't overcome on your own, and usually not until you've at least reached some sort of moderate success with the game. For some of us, that day never comes. So developing homebrew for older consoles allows us to explore those devices and learn how to program for a video game console. Plus, it's just amazing to watch your game console light up and display your project. It honestly makes you feel like a professional developer the first time you see it. At the end of the day, it really just comes down to passion. No game developer is spending hundreds if not thousands of hours developing something in their own spare time to release on a console that no longer even allows official releases to release something without any sort of passion. Even the most controversial aftermarket games are all built on passion. I'm sure there are some other motivations that I've missed, but I think that about covers it for now. Thanks for your time, everyone, and thanks for watching.